I thought, I was kind of sitting there one day, and I remember a conversation I had with Toby Mohan from Form, and Toby said to me, I actually am enjoying injuring myself so I can test myself and I become an N=1 subject in the area of pain. And when he said that, I thought, actually, me too. I don't freak out when I get injured. I become a subject, and I actually step back and watch myself be injured and then wonder how my brain and my body are interacting. And I'm just wondering if any of you guys have experienced that.
Yeah, well, I'm currently seeing a physiotherapist because I've shoulder injury that has a significant amount of pain associated with it.
Did you do it on purpose just to test yourself?
I didn't deliberately do it, but it has been a really interesting process to go through, given the fact that there's some structural potential issues there or some strength stuff, but then also understanding that I need to keep moving, which is a common process for me, but also that, I've actually got to push through the pain and understand what's influencing it and still keep the movement so that I can actually engage in my physical movement.
But do you think, because I know you're a bit Simon.
Sorry about banging the table.
I know you're a bit Simon. And I know you in the gym, where you do 4-hour stints in the gym. How are you at pacing yourself in the gym with your shoulder? Because this is something we tell clients to do. So how are you at doing it? Poorly
at the moment, but I think that's been the most interesting thing for me as well, is probably working with my physio and him then now working with me and understanding me to be able to help encourage me to pace myself by actually getting really clear with what restrictions he has for me, which has been an interesting process, because most physios go, just go and do this or do this movement, where he's actually being very hard and fast about this is the way you lift for how many reps, because he knows that
you'll lose it.
Yeah, and he
said 10, I can do 50.
Yeah, and he still is of the understanding that I'm probably going to push it too far anyway, but it's also about putting in the parameters. So it's been really interesting.
So look, I think, guys, it's obvious that even as psychologists who work in the pain arena, we're actually not great at pacing. Is there anyone who's brilliant at pacing themselves in the team?
No.
Damn.
No.
So it really becomes do as we say, don't do as we do. Or you can come and see us and understand that we're encountering the same issues that you're encountering.
Yeah. And I think pacing as a concept is about calibration, right? Like for me, it's like I try and pace, and sometimes I don't do it very well. But then that is a data point for me next time to say, hey, remember that time you went a bit too hard or did too much? Let's pull that back this time. And, it happens, because sometimes you have a good day and you feel really good, and then it's not till hours later or the next day I'm like, oh, something went wrong. But, it's just about learning from that, right? It's never perfect.
Yeah.
So do any of you other guys, not that I'm thinking anyone goes, I'll jump off this building and see how I feel about pain, but has anyone injured themselves or fallen or done something but found themselves, because of the pain science that we work in, go, well, this is really interesting, brain. How are we incorporating, how are we understanding this? Are you having a bit of a chat with yourself while you're laying on the ground swelling?
Definitely, the more time I spend in the pain science arena, the more my thinking changes around, any kind of chronic stuff that I have experienced, any kind of injuries that I do have, not to the same degree as Simo, but I used to be pretty into the gym, and have gone through my fair share of, elbow tendonitis with dry needling, lower back pain, mid back pain, upper back pain, all those sorts of things, and just really reconceptualizing what that pain meant and how to go about fixing it. And it was always interesting the different kind of advice that you would get around pain as well, from sort of different physicians of different sort of with different backgrounds, different ages. Some would be the rest. Some would be sort of, maybe a little to the other way, almost sort of gung-ho. So
do you reckon, and anyone else can jump in, that you've experienced, and I think all of us have to some extent, diverging views of people, and you think, well, geez, who do I listen to? Who do I believe? What's the best direction? And we empathise with clients who come and go, I'm seeing 5 people, I'm getting 5 different opinions. And it's confusing enough to us understanding pain science, let alone these guys that don't.
Yeah, I mean, the lower back injury that I had, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, I think I saw 5 physios for it and got 5 completely different treatment regimes, 5 completely different opinions. You know, one was saying it was bulging that way, one was saying it was bulging that way, one was saying focus on your deep abdominal wall, one was saying do scorpions all the time, one was saying never do any scorpions. It was,
it's confusing.
Bewildering, yeah.
But then I think that's the same process that goes with all health providers, is finding the person that works for you, that you feel like you can trust and that you are confident in engaging with, in that, like, you know, we're not expecting, you know, results that are just coming from the first session, but you develop some trust and a relationship. And I think that goes for the physio as well, as it does with everybody.
Do you think it's a bit more than that though, Simon, in the sense that we need to not just review what they're telling us as treatment, but look for scientific kind of logic behind it? You know, someone's saying, hey, there's this great treatment of cupping, this really helps, and you're like, well, what's the science behind it?
Yeah.
And clients should ask, what's the science behind it? Not, this cupping looks really cool.
Yeah, and there's got to be, you know, a good evidence base and a process behind it. But I think as well, you know, if you're going into a, say for example, and maybe I'm targeting physios here, but if you're going in there and there's no even something like empirical testing to understand that you're making improvements, I'd automatically be having a bit of a red flag there to say, this person's just coming in and doing really passive treatment with me. You know, one of the first things that I did at my last physio visit was, you know, a testing regime to see what my rotator cuff strength was and that process. So I've got a goal to work towards, and then he can reflect on whether the treatment that he's engaging in with me and the recovery process, or okay, maybe it's not working here. So,
So you reckon cupping's out?
I actually quite enjoy cupping.
But it's enjoyable.
It's enjoyable.
It's a Greek thing.
Yeah.
We could do it here. All we need are glasses, fork, methylated spirits on some thingy. We put it up, you lay on the table, and each of us have a go at putting a cup on you.
Yeah, but it's interesting though, isn't it? Because then even within some of these, you know, I don't know the evidence base behind it, but then there's treaters that use cupping in different processes. So I've had one physio that would call it stripping, where the cupping wasn't just a static cup, it was moving and I actually found that quite effective because it was theoretically releasing the fascia, which increased movement. But that as well is one of those ones where I found benefit for it, okay. But if I wasn't finding any benefit and there was no sort of process where I was seeing improvement, I would disengage.
Yeah, but you also just didn't have that, did you? You had active treatment. And
there was always stretches and things like that.
Which is not just let's get you cupped.
Yeah.
Hannah, what have been your experiences with pain? Have you ever had pain? Have you ever had an injury, and how have you dealt with it?
Well, it's more actually just made me reflect on so I've had major back surgery, and I, at a young age, was very confused as to why the first thing that they get you to do is you stand up and you walk. And in my head, I'm going, I've just had major back surgery. That actually makes no sense to me. It's painful, it hurts, and I just want to lay down and do nothing. But now, looking back, that being the first thing that I was encouraged to do, and then to continue to do. So even though it hurt, it was actually an important part of rehabilitating my back.
Yeah.
And it wasn't walk until you can't walk anymore and then you collapse. It was
pace
and do a couple of steps, and then let's do a walk around the ward, and now that it's been a couple of weeks, let's start walking around the block. And so it was an encouragement to be in the pain and to work with it, but then not to push it too far.
Yeah. Which would have been hard. How old were you?
15.
It would have been hard as a 15-year-old.
Yeah. But now knowing the science behind the brain and why we're not fighting against pain and why it's important to work with pain, that all now makes so much sense. Mm-hmm. But that wasn't explained to me. It was just like, up you get.
Yep, you'll be right.
Off you go.
Yep.
Even for my parents going, is that the best idea? And a surgeon just being like, yep. Yes, it
And
is.
it is hard though, because like even my dad's recently been told he's got arthritis, and then it's been funny.
What, you're super active dad?
Yeah, but it's been funny to sort of challenge him through the process of, you know, understanding what pain is and why you're experiencing it, and that sort of older, you know, he's an older gentleman, but you know, that understanding that, you know, like you are going to experience pain. Pain is okay. But he's like, no, all pain's bad. And I'm like, no, mate, just think a little bit more strategic.
When you tried to explain it to your dad, did he look at you and go, "Well, pain's real. It's not in my head"?
He didn't get that aggressive. Mum would have, but he sort of, you know, it's that's and you know, trying to educate him around. Well, you know, most people do have a level of arthritis, and you know, at your age it's normal, and it's not necessarily showing you that there's something that you drastically need to be fearful of. It's just letting you know, just all that sort of piece, and watching somebody that would never have had that pain education in their life go, no, that's not what pain means, and so really trying to strip it back. So it's different horses for courses, I think.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and one of my clients told me something. She's been doing our pain program that recently ended via Zoom from the Riverland, and she said, "Oh, when I finish the Zoom session, I go and I tell my partner all the stuff we've talked about, and so he's my coach now. He returns it to me, and when I'm in pain, he says that's because you're stressed, or that's because you didn't sleep well." So. You know, she's told me that they went to the surgeon and he wanted to do more surgery, and he said to her in the car afterwards, "But you've been stressed lately. Could that not have been why your pain is worse?" Like, he didn't even bother asking you about that. So it's good that you're getting people out there, and they've become our mouthpieces. And this is even people that don't do our pain programs or don't come and see us. These are the partners, the couples, the children, and whatever. So it's exciting that the word is getting out there. But we're all going to continue injuring ourselves purely because we're doing it for you, so we can test strategies out on ourselves.
So next time you come to the office, all of us will have
some
injury,
type
a
of
cast.
a cast, or we'll be limping or something.
Crutches.
And
Might even do it live on camera.
we could. At least we'll kind of
Jackass Paragon.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question though, because I had a conversation with Chris about this recently, and I've been meaning to ask you. Sometimes it can go the other way though too, can't it? In that the pain, you know, we do push the message, keep moving, keep functioning, but you know, and this is where the testing comes into play quite often, and listening to what the experience is that it can go the other way, that something's being missed too.
It can. Look, it's not often.
Yeah.
It's relatively rare, but again, I think that's the science behind it. If things don't look obvious, it's okay to go and get testing.
Yeah.
But we'll often get people that have, you know, squillion MRIs or CT scans or whatever, and you can find nothing, and the person's going, well, they haven't looked enough.
Yeah.
You know, we do get people that they haven't looked at all.
Yeah.
You know, and then they go and get looked at and they're like, hey, they've missed this.
Yeah.
You know, and that's important that they have that. But I remember 15 years ago, someone came and saw me and he said, oh, they're not finding anything, and, you know, they've missed it and they haven't really looked properly. And I said to him, look, I specialise in this area. Do you want me to have a bit of a look at all your stuff and give you an opinion? He goes, all right, I'll bring my stuff to you. A week later, the receptionist rang me and said, oh, you need to come out here for this. I said, why? She said, he's delivered 20 boxes of gear for you to look at. He'd had himself scanned from head to toe 30 times at least, but he was still looking
For
something. And we don't want that, but we also don't want we've missed something.
Yeah.
We don't want to have someone, like I did years ago, who was told she's having anxiety attacks and nearly died because she had really severe pneumonia.
Yeah.
She couldn't breathe because she had severe, and they'd missed it. They just thought she was having an anxiety attack.
Because it is interesting to watch the spectrum of, it has, you know, it almost seems like it's caught fire, the pain sciences, and, you know, it's great that people are starting to look at things differently, but then at times it can be that
You don't want to go too far the other end.
Yeah, it's just finding the pendulum swing.
No, I agree. I agree.
Because we had this conversation the other day about, you know, fundamentally something was missed, and you know, you're not seeing the improvement, the pain catastrophising scores are not, you know, and it was really interesting to watch, and sort of recommending, I think you actually need to go and have another conversation with your treater to find out if you should be requesting another another investigation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a big thing as well is having pain isn't this black or white scenario, right? I'm in pain, I have an injury, I can't do anything. And it's like, there's a lot you can be doing. Even if something has been missed, that doesn't mean there aren't things that can help you manage that. And sometimes that pain is going to be there that's going to say, don't do that. Just pull away, you know, don't be active. But activity is always going to be a part of recovery, regardless of what the state of the injury is. But finding ways to move safely and be safe. And that's, again, coming back to the experts.
Yeah.
And seeking out that information that you need to
Yeah,
feel
am I safe?
comfortable.
Can I do that? Well, I'm going to get, I'm looking at buying some decals that say that we can put them on our doors. Fun is a therapy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's important that we remind people that health is not just physical, it's psychological, it's social, it's everything, it's all those things, and you need to keep having fun.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, fun is definitely a therapy. Fun is a therapy. Thank you. And we'll keep injuring ourselves just for you.